Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our program. This is ClimACT News. In our show tonight, we will focus on global warming and its consequences. Ice melting, sea level rise, drought, and wildfires. These are some of the problems our specialized reporters in the field have encountered back in the 21st century. Let's meet them. Shimon, Fidel, Rodrigo, AC, Wojtek, Lazar, and Francisco. Here's what's coming up.
The iceberg will melt. There will be a lot of desert. There won't be plants. There won't be the oxygen or food. That's why we won't survive.
And let's get started. Joining me now is Fidel. He will be conducting an interview with a biologist in 2020.
Buenos días. Voy a entrevistar a Inmaculada López Perada, una bióloga que nos hablará sobre el calentamiento global. Buenos días.
Buenos días, Fidel.
¿Qué es el calentamiento global?
El calentamiento global es el aumento de la temperatura media del planeta, tanto de la atmósfera como de la superficie de los océanos, a lo largo del tiempo.
Muy bien. ¿Cuáles son las causas del calentamiento global?
Las causas del calentamiento global son diversas, pero en general se dice que se deben al aumento de los gases de la atmósfera que son capaces de captar calor. Entre ellos estarían el dióxido de carbono y el metano, el vapor de agua. Digamos que esos son los tres principales.
¿Y cuáles son las consecuencias?
Las consecuencias son diversas, tanto para la biodiversidad, es decir, para la flora y la fauna del planeta. Se considera que se pierde biodiversidad. También ocasiona daños a los hielos de los polos, porque al aumentar la temperatura, como sabes, los hielos desaparecen. ¿Y qué consecuencias puede traer esto? Pues va a traer como consecuencias que aumentará el nivel del mar y por lo tanto las poblaciones costeras de los diferentes continentes pues se van a ver afectadas, se van a hundir poblaciones que en la actualidad están en los márgenes de los océanos y eso va a traer como consecuencia que aumentará el número de personas que tendrán que desplazarse de su vivienda a otras zonas, son los que se llaman migrantes climáticos. Y alguna otra consecuencia que ya estamos observando pues es la variación del clima. Se cree que el clima va a variar en todo el planeta.
Muy bien. ¿Y qué podemos hacer para evitar eso?
Pues aunque parezca mentira y la gente opina que no se pueden hacer grandes cosas, yo creo que todos podemos hacer pequeñas cosas. Como por ejemplo, evitar las combustiones, evitar los incendios, evitar utilizar combustibles fósiles, que van a ser unos de los que aportan gran cantidad de gases de efecto invernadero, ¿no? Ese que decíamos, el dióxido de carbono, el vapor de agua, etc. Podemos utilizar más la bicicleta, utilizar la energía solar en lugar de quemar carbón y petróleo. Podemos compartir el transporte, utilizar más el transporte público, consumir productos que se fabriquen en lugares cercanos a donde vivimos, ¿vale? Para evitar así el transporte de mercancías a lo largo de todo el planeta. Y yo creo que esos pequeños gestos los podemos tener tú, yo y cualquiera de nosotros. Y muchos pequeños gestos contribuyen a que el planeta pues, sufra menos.
Muy bien. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias a ti, Fidel. Encantada de que me hayas entrevistado.
Igualmente.
Hasta pronto.
Chao.
Chao.
Over the past 2 centuries, many scientists and experts were constantly warning governments of the dangers that climate change poses to their countries. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations at the time, in his many speeches, was also predicting the inevitable in 2020.
today I'm appealing for leadership from politicians, from business and scientists, and from the public everywhere. We have the tools to make our actions effective. What we still lack, even after the Paris Agreement, is the leadership and the ambition to do what is needed. And what makes all of this even more disturbing is that we were warned. Scientists have been telling us for decades, over and over again. And far too many leaders have refused to listen. And far too few have acted with the vision the science demands. And we see the results. In some situations, they are approaching scientists' worst-case scenarios. The world's richest nations are the most responsible for the climate crisis, yet the effects are being felt first and worst by the poorest nations and the most vulnerable peoples and communities.
Next up, we have Rodrigo, one of our ClimACT news reporter, live from the polls also in 2020. Hi Rodrigo, what are you seeing there?
Thanks, Afonso. I'm in Antarctic in the 21st century, and as you can see, there's a big ice platform break separating itself from the mainland. This happens because our planet has heating up too fast, and this will cause catastrophic changes in the natural world. Right now, there are many icebergs drifting around the ocean, which can be dangerous for ships. Ice melting will certainly increase the sea level rise. As we, the people from the 22nd century, well know. Let me show you the opposite side of the world. Now I'm in Arctic region. Behind me, you can see polar bears struggling to survive. Polar bears need sea ice to hunt seals. So now, as ice is melting, they need to travel farther to find the seals. Back to you, Afonso.
Thanks Rodrigo for such an impressive reporting. After the break, we'll take a look on a real and sad example of the impact of the sea level rise. Don't go far. Welcome back. Let's bring in AC, the climate news reporter who discovered a small seaside town in Portugal that no longer exists due to the advance of the sea waters. As we all know, the level of the sea waters in the last century went up uncontrollably and made many villages disappear in the world. The two major causes of global sea level rise are thermal expansion caused by warming of the ocean and increased melting of land-based ice, such as glaciers and ice sheets. The oceans are absorbing more than 90% of the increased atmospheric heat associated with emissions from human activity. As an example of this global catastrophe, I'm now in a small coastal town in the north of Portugal, which ended up disappearing due to the increase of water levels. Despite the many measures that the inhabitants have taken, such as the construction of breakwaters along the beach line to stop the rise of the sea, or the creation of small ports along the entire coast to prevent the sea from entering the land, the Sea of Spinho did not resist and was swallowed by sea. What you're seeing behind me does not exist anymore. The video that we are about to see comes from our archives. It's a testimony of an inhabitant of Spinho who recorded her city back in the year 2020, where she is showing how her city was back then.
Espinho. This is my town, a small town, 21 square kilometers, that grew, a place that grew in between two little rivers, one here in the north and another one in the south part of towns. The first families came here, they were just fishing families. We call this the Bay Beach, Bahia, Praia da Bahia in Portuguese, and it grew just because that pier was built. Before that, the ocean was much closer. Even so, in winter sometimes the waves, they reach this wall. These walls were built to protect the streets from the ocean, but sometimes it's not enough. This is a constant struggle, the rising of the sea level, and during storms it gets even worse. I remember one of these winters, some years ago, 2 or 3, the sea came here during a very big storm. I don't remember the name, but you see that building on the beach, the ocean was there.
In the 21st century, many parts of the world faced another major problem, drought. Joining me now is Wojtek with his reporting about drought in Poland. Hello Wojtek, what were the reasons for drought in Poland? What can you tell us?
The reason for droughts in Poland is not only the lack of the rain, but it's also the range and of the lack regulation of rivers. Most of our country is flooding with infrequent water. They remain with excess water. And this mainly due to fact that the region has the highest rainfall per cubic meter. Not only the temporary lack of rainfall is responsible for drought in our country, but it's also influence almost of water because the wetlands and are still drying. Flooded areas ungulated. There's no question of floods and droughts in the mildew there. The main problem in investigating is the effects of floods and droughts. It's to fast surface runoff. Water is not only flows down to
Sorry Wojtek, we appreciate your testimony, but our time is up. Thank you. We'll be back after a quick break.
Welcome, Ms. Daniels, to our ClimACT News meeting. thank you so much for doing what you are doing today in El Paso, Texas. This walk through the desert, it will be certainly very interesting. So the floor is yours. Good morning.
Hello. So really quick, I just want to tell you about the region I am in. Again, my name is Ms. Daniels. I'm a teacher in El Paso, Texas. My students are 7 years old. And so even at that young age, they're interested as well about the environment, not only that we live in, but the whole planet, okay? And so this region, today, the date is April 21st, 2020. According to my research, the experts predicted that this area that I live in, that hundreds of thousands of people live in, would be out of water by 2020. All right. And so because of severe drought that this region has had, you know, we are the desert, but that doesn't mean we don't have natural sources of water through aquifers and different types of basins in the desert, right? And so we had to do something. And so what this region did is built the world's largest desalination plant about 3 years ago to combat the problem we had of running out of water, right? And you might not think in the United States we're going to run out of water, just like in other areas of the world, but indeed it was going to happen. And so now at this moment, we're not in a drought cycle. And you know that just the desert, just like all regions on the planet, goes through cycles, natural cycles, right? The problem now is becoming warmer temperatures, cause less snow to fall up north of us, and so we get less runoff into our rivers and into our underground water sources. So thankfully we have the desalination plant, and so what the desalination plant is doing in simple terms is turning our sewage waste back into drinkable or potable water. And so as gross as that sounds, right? It's from toilet to tap. I don't know the translation for that, but it's working. And so thankfully we have this technology, but that can't be enough. We have to do something else to make worldwide the problem of drought not affect us, right? Not just us, but the environment.
Welcome back. Ice melting, sea level rise, droughts, wildfires. We are now ready to come live from the year 2020. Good evening, Lazar.
Hello. The effects of global warming can be seen not only in the form of melting glaciers. Global warming causes forest fires, quite frequent these days. For example, Australian forest fires. In Poland, the Biebrza National Park fell victim to global warming. On the 19th of April this year, a fire broke out. Within a few days, the fire consumed over 5,000 hectares. Scientists believe that the fire was caused by global warming. I give the floor to the studio.
We apologize for the bad conditions of the broadcast. Sometimes these back-in-time connections do not work properly. Before ending this show, let's bring in Francisco. This is year 2121, Francisco. What could people have done 100 years ago to save our planet from the horrible conditions we are all living under now?
Thank you, Alfonso. Back in 2020, people could have done little things to try to stop the global warming. Little things that could have helped our planet. And I'm going to show you 3 little examples. Reduce the beef consumption. Agriculture is one of the largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the world, not only for its practice, but also for the associated deforestation. Cattle generates methane gas, which causes the greenhouse effect 21 times more than the carbon dioxide, contributing strongly to the increase in the average temperature of the planet. Turn off the light when leaving a place. Saving electricity is another easy action people could have done to stop the global warming and drought. As we all know, electricity needs water, so turning off the lights or switching off the electric or electronic devices will consume less water. Avoid using the car whenever possible. When burning fuel, vehicles emit greenhouse gases. Walking is the choice with the least environmental impact, something people could have done when going to close by places. Back in 2020, if people had walked more instead of using their car, after a lifetime, the quantity of greenhouse gases not released into the atmosphere would be the equivalent to that emitted in the production of electricity for 41 years. Back to you, Afonso.
Thank you, Francisco. Great tips. All this information was brought to you by our special reporters worldwide, reporting not only from the 22nd but also in the 21st century. We hope to have helped you better understand the reasons that led to our planet's fast climate change, particularly during the past century. ClimACT News will be back next week. Thanks for watching and stay safe.